Hi, everyone. I'm Billy Himpler from GovCon Leader Circle. We're doing another Insight interview today. I'm here with Mike Ricciardi from Domenix. How are you, Mike?
Hey, pretty good, Billy, and thank you for having me. Today's a beautiful day out there, so
Sure is.
couldn't have a better day to be inside.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Got to get out. Well, let's get into it. How are things at Domenix?
Well, first, like I said, my name is Mike Ricciardi, Michael Ricciardi. I go by Mike as well. I'm the managing partner of Domenix Corporation. We're based out of Chantilly, Virginia. My education and career is in information science and computer systems in general. For the last 20 years, we've been kind of focusing on a specialty area called combating weapons of mass destruction. And that's part of the new Department of War, what used to be the Department of Defense. We have a customer set that's focused on chem biorad nuke detection. Today, they've reorganized. They're called the Capability Program Executive as opposed to the Joint Point Program Executive Office. So there've been massive reorganization. Other customers are Homeland Security, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, specifically the Joint Science and Technology Office, because we work in the realm of R&D. For the most part, a lot of our stuff is experimental, and then it kind of makes their way into the field. And so we work also with sensor manufacturers and distributors of these sensor systems, but we're not limited to chem biosensors. We're also agnostic to any sensor. So we're horizontal in nature that we could fit any sort of domain and silos of, I like call it silos of excellence in our industry. So on a personal side, I guess you may or may not know, Billy, but I am an immigrant. And today, that's a good thing if you come in legal. So good for me. I came in legally with my family. We come from a town in Italy called Sturno, Sturno, just like the little things that you put under the trays to warm them up. That's a town in the province of Avellino. It's kind of north east of Naples, in the mountains there, if you will. And my father came here first in 65, followed by me and my mom when I was 6 going on 7 in 67. And I learned English mainly from watching cartoons and the few slang words that my grandfather gave me on the boat trip over. So I kind of grew up in a sort of an Italian community in Brooklyn and Glen Cove, Long Island. I went to school at Buffalo University after I did my tenure at a community college, and for the most part, my career has started as a program system person, and then I ventured into forming my own business. So that's where I stand right now. So again, happy to be in Virginia now, moving from Long Island and being part of the GovCon community.
When did you move down from New York to Virginia?
That was 1986.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I moved on an interesting situation where I was a programmer for a company called United Technologies, and I got an high offer from a company called Sperry and Great Neck. But then, come to find out, they had a union, and the union, the only engineering union, and they decided to go on strike. So Sperry at the time was in the process of merging with boroughs, becoming Unisys today. And so they had to basically move the work down to Virginia, which was a right to work state. And so lo and behold, my brother had come down here in 1985 to open up restaurants with a friend of his that had been down here. And, for me, it was, hey, Joe, what's down there? I mean, is it worthwhile? And he says, yeah, come on down. So that's how I ended up in 1986.
Okay, awesome. Just curious, not to get too sidetracked. What kind of restaurants? Italian restaurants?
Yeah, so my brother's been pretty successful down here. He used to have, it used to be called Steak and Shell, and then the Pino's Cafe, Dolce Vita in Fairfax,
Sure.
Sweeties in Falls Church. So my two brothers have been in the restaurant business for many, many years. I kind of got my chops in the restaurant business as a dishwasher. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good place to learn discipline and hard
Yeah,
work.
interesting story. When I first came down here, we shortly got married. My wife in 1987. We both met in Buffalo, and for the most part, I've been sort of ingratiating myself in the community down here. I became an
Yeah.
adjunct professor at Northern Virginia Community College, and then of course I sort of joined various committees because of my expertise, and so I've been sort of involved with the defense industrial complex, if you will, NDIA, and also becoming the chair of what we call the CWMD OTA.
Yeah, cool. Can you tell us more about that? What the CWPTLA is?
So the OTA is other transactional authority. It
Yeah.
started about 10 years ago and or more. Started out of Picatinny, excuse me, not Picatinny, but just generally in New Jersey, with the what they used to have the C5ISR and other entities, and they formed these other transactional authorities to fast track non-FAR based contract, federal acquisition regulation. So it was a mechanism for the government to fast track prototypes, and
Yes.
so it was really valuable to companies like mine, small businesses who were in the R&D space, having a venue to, because in this area here we compete with the 8A firms, if you will, that sort of get preference over small businesses. And so
Right.
we find ourselves always on the outs, if you will, having to compete on a larger scale for the most part, except for small business set-asides, but they're far and few between in the past, and OTAs were mechanism to correct that, to get good capabilities into the government from industry.
Well, and my understanding is that I think it's what, the 60s or 70s when they introduced OTAs. It was either NASA or something
It was
space related.
NASA, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Fast tracking contracts, yes.
Yeah. So that, yeah, Uncle Sam can be a little slow sometimes. So getting the commercial equivalent grade A product for the government. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh, Great. Well, I want to bring it back just in terms of timeline here, make sure we don't miss anything. So you graduated from Buffalo, and then right away you got your master's at New York Tech.
Yes, I got my master's in New York Tech, in '87, while I was working at, what was then Goodyear Aerospace.
Okay. Yeah, and then you've it seems, I don't wanna boost your ego too much, but you've been an entrepreneur pretty much your whole life. Right away joining and that, the first firm right after New York Tech, working during that, and then, subsequently, your wife and yourself started a firm.
Yeah, so, I kinda, it was a side job initially,
Yeah,
and it became something more because, I learned, that I actually was being farmed out, by, the first
yeah,
company I came down to Virginia with, Computer Horizon, and then later, working for Goodyear Aerospace, they got bought out by Loral. And Loral was a very interesting firm. They're very, very entrepreneurial. They kind of created divisions all over the place. And the first thing they did was, my group was called the Advanced Project Group. We were $5 million budgeted per year for pervasive technology. We were doing AI back in, in the late '80s, if you will, for very specialized cases where Loral had radar warning receivers, and it was a way for those uh, sort of F-15s to be smart as they flew through, treacherous surface to air missile sites, if you will. So that that company taught me something very interesting, because when they bought Goodyear Aerospace, which is more of a old time, old fashioned company, right, built in the 1800s, I guess, with Goodyear. Uh, uh, but nonetheless, they kind of came in and said, "Hey, guys, there's no more $5 million per year. There's no more sort of, pervasive technology. We have all these companies. Here's a plane ticket. Go get yourself billable, and you have 3 months to do it. Otherwise, you go find another job, because we
yeah.
got to pull 20% out of this thing, going forward." And so that was my entree into learning about government contracting. And so I figured, well, if I can sell myself, to other divisions, I might as well just sell myself as an individual. And that's why I started RTI.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and so RTI, in 1992.
Yeah. Yep. So like I said, I had a side business called Mar CSD, which is Michael Anthony Ricciardi, computer system designers. My wife helped me with the accounting while I did the work, if you will. So she did all the bookkeeping. And then we decided to incorporate in '92. So we became a full-fledged C Corp. She kind of took on the role of some operations. And of course, I hired people along the way as I got smart about how to acquire contracts, mainly through subbing through the larger firms like the IBMs of the world, and the Lorals of the world, and the Lockheed Martins of the world.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's excellent. And then from there, I mean, you were working not just with the Lockheeds and BAEs, but you had a little bit of work with ExxonMobil in the commercial space too, right?
Yeah, we did, and that was enjoyable, because it was far different than what I would dealt with in the DoD side. They were much more um, fluent in getting capabilities out the door fast. So I learned a lot by working with mobile. That then when Exxon bought, then you start to find out how the commercial world works. It's a little more in the government. The relationships are sort of skewed. You don't know about them; they happen. But in
Yeah,
the commercial world, you know they face you right in the face, right? If you don't
sure.
know the person you're working with and they don't like you, you you're on the outside no matter how good you are, right? But in the DoD, there's a subtleness to that same sort of principle.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And so fast forwarding, when did you guys merge with Science Dynamics?
Yeah, so interesting, Billy. I think this is important for your audience because I think this is a good story about how I went through the thought process. I'm a big hand up kind of guy, right? I believe charity comes from building things that people sort of work at, right?
Yeah.
So I created an ESOP in my RTI company, trying to sort of incentivize the employees to sort of take a stake and help, right? Because frankly, if they see you as being the only one making out, then they're less likely to kind of, spend
Exactly.
their times on your efforts, right?
Yeah.
Which is building the business, was
Yeah.
my goal to build the business and build a better place for everyone. So the ESOP really didn't have the effect I wanted it to have. People
Mm.
didn't care. They kept coming back and saying, "How much money am I getting this month?" So it was a different dynamics that I had to learn the hard way because good deeds always get punished.
Yeah. It's interesting. We have it happen. I think other recruiting firms have it happen. You get to the final stage, and a candidate turns down the offer, and you're like, "Why?" And there's one I'm thinking of that was not so far, pretty recent. This package included the equivalent of about 200 grand in stock. The candidate came back and said, "Hey, yeah, just I don't view that as worth anything." Nicely put.
Well, the
um,
ESOP, but by the way, the ESOP has a double-edged sword, right? Because
yeah.
it's not public, right?
Well,
I.e.,
yeah, this was a separate example, but yeah, I understand.
but,
Same
but, but
idea.
but I wanted to point out to you that when I sold RTI, Ricciardi Technologies Incorporated, back in 2006 to Lattice. Well, then it was called Science Dynamics. They were a public company. So my theory was, oh, I join up with a public company. There's constantly an inflow of funds through the stock sale. And then the employees, when I convert their ESOP into stocks, now they could actually look at the value of the stock on the exchange. And I said,
Yeah.
now they can see their value realized on an instant basis. So
Yeah.
that was my theory behind it.
There's some great ESOPs in the DC area. DCS Corp is one. I think American Systems, those two compete. Do you know DCS or American Systems?
They're one of my cousins. Yeah, I do know them very well. I've
Yeah,
worked with them.
Caliber Systems over in
Yep.
Springfield, Alexandria area. Great. Yeah. All wonderful firms. I mean, look, not to harp too much on this candidate I was mentioning, but it, from their end, it's like, hey, the company could go up, down, sideways. Like it's a fair calculation. Um, I'm with you. I'd rather have the long term incentive, the growth there, than maybe a few extra bucks month to month. But everybody's situation is different. But that's interesting. So so you converted to an ESOP, didn't work, and then you sold it to
Science Dynamics.
yeah, that's right. And, so how long did you hang around with Science Dynamics?
Not long at all because I had expectations that they had same philosophy as we had discussed. They put me in a COO role. I guess the CEO did not know what that meant, because it was him and the CFO that sort of were running everything, kind of like a little side business, if you
Yeah,
will. So even though I thought they had the structural part, there's a different philosophy of how to spend the dollars, how to sort of achieve the growth. They gave me the role of integrating these companies, but then they handcuffed me along the way because they made side deals with the other companies, executives, if you will. So it became a situation where I did not want to be there because I knew it was not going to succeed. In fact, the company's dead and gone and defunct, and Domenix today is a thriving business. So I think I made the right choice.
yeah, that's what it sounds like. It can really, I mean, there's so many different analogies, metaphors, but it can really come back to, you pick the wrong partner. Even if it's a little bit extra money here, some benefit there, like, it really doesn't it pays well to have a good partner. It really can hurt you if you have a terrible one.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like a
well
marriage.
yeah, that's right, that's right. Um I was thinking of, when you're in college, picking the teacher over the class, even if the class is super interesting, if the
Right.
teacher's like gold, it could be the most, you know,
The
dry topic.
unintended value that goes beyond what your expectations were, and that's I think
Exactly,
where you're going.
exactly. Great. And so Dominic's, now did your wife, she started with Dominic's before you got there, or what
No,
was
so
the
so the story was, and the
yeah,
story is, and still is, when I started Dominic's, it was mainly because I needed a way at the time to collectively have 1099 folks that RTI can purchase
yeah,
from Dominic's without having to have that sort of issue associated with 1099 versus W-2s. And
mhm,
since we were doing cost plus contracts, it was a lot easier from, the mechanisms of the audits and everything else to have W-2s and then have an outside firm that we other direct costed the 1099s, and they sort of had the consultants, if you will, the people that work
got it.
part-time. So that was the genesis of Dominic's. But around 2007, 2008, when I kind of exited Lattice, which is what I did, I kind of took the three companies that they had, merged them all together. We worked out a new name, Lattice. And then, of course, my situation happened where a year later I decided to, hey, this is not for me. I
Yeah,
then said, hey, Marie, guess what? We're going to try to see what we can do with this now. What you're doing with is basically 1099s. Maybe we can do something different. And that's when I started getting calls from my employees. Oh my God, you're leaving, and so of course I get the whole hemming and hawing and be like, work for you kind of thing.
yeah.
And I said, hey, look, you know what? The best I can do is see if I can reconstitute some of the same sort of capabilities, and you guys can sort of have a role. And that's what I ended up doing. So around
Nice. Yeah.
2008, we kind of took off, kind of doing similar things, if you will, but not in the same sort of venue as what we sold with Pilatus.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine there's probably some non-compete partnership agreement with at the time that you need to be cautious of.
Oh, I had no non-compete.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, the non-compete actually ended up being with Marie. Uh,
Oh,
because
Marie's your wife.
yeah, because,
Yeah.
at RTI, she basically had the majority stake, right?
Okay.
And so she basically did not come over with the new business. I did with Lattice or Science Dynamics. She stayed with Dominix at that time, so she moved from RTI to Dominix.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Well, good. Well, that's great. And so fast forward to today, and it's going well, and you're liking it, and you're every time we meet up, you seem very excited about what's going on with Dominic's, and yeah. So, but it's going well. It's been a good
Yeah, so
month.
right now, like I said, we pivoted. So in 2018, Dominic sort of got so I split the company, if you will, Dominic's, around 2009, 2010 into two separate firms. One was called DXT, Domenix
Mhm.
Technology. The other one was called Dominic's. And the reason why I split that, we had grown since, 2008, so things were going well. And so at that point in time, there was a requirement that you can be a performer and you can be what we call SMEs, subject matter experts, providing what they call system engineering technical assistance. So either you work behind this government firewall or you were a performer on the other side. So the administration at the time created a rule that you can do both. That's why you saw the SAIC split. That's why you saw the divestitures of
Yep.
TASC and divestitures of all these companies. There was a lot of divestiture in 2009, 2010. We were, as a small business, we felt we had to sort of follow the same pattern, and we did. So DXT became its own company. Marie kind of went that way. I took over Dominic's and went my way, so to speak, right? So she did the CETA business, and I did the pro forma product business, if you will. But I helped her most of the time with that effort, if you will, as a sub in many of those endeavors. So in around 2018, DXT got bought by a company called Answer. And so,
Yes, I know
yeah,
answer. Yeah.
so DXT was purchased by Answer, which kind of left me so just focusing on Dominic's. And I did. And then my old partner, comes out of the blue. He had retired. He had when RTI was sold, he stayed with the company a certain duration. He went into government. He became a government CIO and CTO. And around 2018, after I sold DXT with Marie, she kind of went out of the picture. He reached out to me, and he had retired. He was floating around the world traveling, and he was getting bored. and I offered him an opportunity to buy into Domenix at a good price, and he did, and he became my 25% partner again.
Excellent. Yeah. And so any other significant, I'm sure there's been some significant events along the way, but any other changes in partnership, equity, or it's
No,
been
s-
yeah.
no. So Dave and I are the only two, the only two holders. This is an S corp. Dominix
Yeah.
is an S corp. He's got 25. I got 75. The
Yep.
only big changes that happened is we started to focus more on product lines as opposed to just providing consultation,
Mhm.
sort of support, if you will. We
Yeah.
started to focus more on products, and that's sort of been our investments for the last 6 years. And
Uh,
like I mentioned to you earlier, it's a hard sell because you have to educate your customers. Uh,
right.
but the good news story is we landed some really good opportunities where we are the software factory using our DevSecOps expertise with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. So we provide that software factory for them to do their build outs for their software. From that came a product called D2SOP, which stands for the Dominix DevSecOps. And D2SOP now is being used as a CMMC 2.0 in a box. So you can get that quick capabilities for self-assessment and then go through the process of a CPO kind of coming in and blessing you with a certificate. So we're making that process very easily. And then of course we launched a product line called the Unified Protocol Architecture, which is a hard sell because like I said, we're an aggregator of data, not always understood by the way things were done in the past, but with the advent of AI, it's becoming more valuable because one of the features of it is that we have this data piping mechanism where we can look at data along the pipeline and then apply AI along the way and actually make the data more understandable. So those are the things we're focused on. And luckily for us, my son came on board after he graduated VT. He runs that product called UPA. And my daughter, after 8 years at MITRE running their AI shop for the FAA, decided, you know what? I want to, and so she became the COO as of January 5th. So she runs our IML business and focuses mainly on the D2 SOP and sort of looking at the product line and deciding how do we mesh this where it could become a value add to companies that we support.
That's great. That's really exciting. Family business.
You know what? I had thoughts. Me and Dave talked about. We went to a lot of M&A sessions. We were thinking, you know what? This is an interesting thing. Maybe we just need to have a bigger player to play with, and we're looking at selling, if you will. And we tippy-toed with some companies along the way, and we decided, you know what? We're gonna just stick to our knittings, get the family in, and keep this thing running.
That's good. That's great. Well, I want to leave some time to get your analysis on where the market is, where the market's heading. Real quick on one of the things you mentioned a moment ago. I think a lot of firms right now are saying it. You had the intuition a few years back. It sounds like from what you just mentioned, shifting to product lines. The bulk of the companies that we work with in the DC area, for as long as I can remember, that 80% middle labor services, providing experts, solid people, subject matter experts, but um, not a specific product, not tied to, and we're not even getting into manufacturing per se.
Right.
And so 6 years ago, I think you said 6 years ago, getting on the product side, I imagine that has really paid off, and it sounds like it.
Well, it's a lot. So there's a lot of investment. That's the difference. So I'm gonna be crude here. I'm originally from New York, so
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
they're called butts and seats. I mean, they're just temp agencies. That's what DXT used to be. That's what part of RTI's business used to be. Mar CSD was the only one that actually provided a value, i.e., we sold to lawyers and accounting firms, and we set up multi-user systems for them to sort of have that. Opportunity to be modernized in their processes. Today, I see the same thing happening with AI. By the way,
Yeah.
it's reminiscent of when computers first were introduced by the likes of IBM and Microsoft, and now that it's going to catapult just like the 1990s with the internet on steroids, if you will. Because today the computer is the network, and the applications are going to be AI. That's how I see it. So back to the question you have, the industry has been predominantly temp agencies, right? And so there's really the value add is by the people that you have, and you're very susceptible to a lot of what I call personalities customers, what they like, who they don't like. You're talking about a people business, right? It's a
Yeah.
temp business. Products give you an extra layer of making your own mark. It kind of goes back to my Italian roots, right? You make something and then
Yeah.
you're proud of what you make, whether it be food, a cabinet, a plumbing equipment, whatever it is, but just something tangible that someone can say, "Ha, your tenacity, your understanding, you hire the right people to do that work, if you will. You take responsibility for the end product." That's where I kind of like to be. That's the space that I feel most comfortable in. And it may not be always profitable per se in given years because of the investments you have to make with product monetization, but it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and you kind of have a different relationship with your people.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know my business, and putting it that way, yeah, I think generally labor services contractors wouldn't consider themselves the same as just a temp agency, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that's what it is when you boil it down, and it is highly susceptible to personalities, culture swings. Um, the product that you're building doesn't talk. Not to, get into that too much, not that
Well,
hey, when it does talk, it could be a good or bad thing, but,
by the way, with the AI tools, it's talking now, by the way.
yeah,
It tells me when I'm steering it wrong. But,
sure.
the point that you made about the butts and seats or the temp agency, if you will, just look at it from this point of view. Company A has a contract. They win it for 5 years. Whatever happens with the relationship between the management and the government fails, they award it to another company. What happens? The people just move to another company. They
Yeah,
just change badge.
yeah,
Okay. And to me, that's the part I don't like.
right,
There's no lineage to what you were able to make a mark on. There's
yeah,
nothing you're doing per se other than the relationship that you created. You lose that relationship, you lose the work. If my product is good, people are going to want my product. They may not like me. And so that's why my son is in the business because he's a better version of me. So I'm hoping he takes the helm and fixes all the sort of personality traits I may have.
oh, we like you, Mike, don't
Yeah,
worry.
well, like I said, I could there's too many shows and movies on the air that people watch and they create what I call stereotypes.
Mhm.
And I fit some of those caricatures and stereotypes. So I do not get the benefit of the doubt typically because there's a preconceived notion of who I am by what they watch on TV.
That's funny. Oh, man. All right. Well, I want to save some time for your analysis on the market recommendations for the next generation. So just yeah, we'll take it from there. Where do you see the market going? I mean, it's been great for some, not so great for others. What's your general analysis on the market and where it's going?
Um, so the market for me is heading towards and I don't know if the pendulum, because I've been around long enough, at least in the space that I'm in, where the pendulum swings, right? The pendulum now is moving more towards efficiencies, more towards accountability, more towards making sure that what we provide is of value. And I think they're trying to put the mechanisms in place to do that. My concern has always been with government with their cost plus contract, all the minutia that they create. They think they're sort of controlling cost, but what they're doing is creating more cost, not less cost. I'm hoping that sort of what they're doing in the Department of War with the Doge effect, with the advent of OTAs and fast tracking, sort of development. The only concern I have is the government going back to the point where they hire their own people internally and compete with industry. I think that's unfair. That's uncapitalistic. And I think that's the part that I don't know if they're going to fix because there's an inertia there, but they're trying to nip at that, right? With that said, there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel with their contracting strategies. Let's see how that prevails because it's good to say one thing, but they end up doing another because there's a bureaucracy there that is entrenched with years and years and years of self licking ice creams. And I think they, for the most part, have to transition. You have to get different people in those slots. And if that happens, it could be good or bad depending on who you get, but the likelihood is there'll be change, right? And so I think what I take away is be prepared for change, be agile, just like we do in software. That's an advantage that I have as a computer scientist is that I understand the agile process, but I think you apply that to business and the agility of being able to maneuver, kind of know your knittings, and then build from those knittings. Sort of follow the Amazon model, right? start by selling books because it's the largest market you can get to, and then build a set of systems to sell those books and then sell the services to that called Amazon Web Services, right? That's the model there. Take Microsoft. They start out with an operating system and they build apps on top of it, right? I'm
Yeah.
using my world on how to do that. But it could be any manufacturing company, right? You start with one widget, you're good at that widget, you expand to other widgets that are in line, stay close to your knittings, understand the customer, understand your product, and realize that if you're in the products business, it's all about one customer can make you go down the tubes because it's one bad rep. So everyone counts. That's the first thing in products that you have to take into consideration. In the service business, it's relationships. So get the cutest person, the nicest person, the most well-connected person, and you'll succeed.
Plenty of good nuggets there. That's wonderful. Um, I do want to bring it to maybe some of those recent grads, like your son. You said he graduated from VT. Go Hokies, not too long ago, right?
He well, about 6 years ago,
Oh,
7 years,
okay.
6
All
years
right.
ago.
Nonetheless, he's young. Um,
He's
okay, so
29. He's
younger gen.
29.
What's that?
He's gonna be 29 on May 9th.
All right, he's still in his 20s. So fresh grad, few years out, whatever it might be. What's one thing you can say to them in terms of advice? Market's tough right now. 100 applications on one job. Waiting. What's something you think younger generation up and comer could do?
So there's a lot of information out there, Billy. That's the funny part. I mean, all that stuff, one man's view is not going to be, collectively the right answer. I think there's a lot of information out there. People who are more wealthier than me, more successful than me, have said follow the AI trail, right? Kind of be the one who knows how to apply AI. Don't be the one building the AI tool. Be the one that knows how to apply AI. I say know a problem set that you want to solve, and then focus on the graduate side, on the school side, do not go for degrees that have no value, right? So I think if you go to school for anything other than, let's say, an engineering where you need a PE degree, where you need some sort of physical documentation to justify your knowledge base, a doctor, a lawyer, a radiologist, whatever it may be that has a functional role that requires some sort of training that the school gives you, anything else is worthless, okay, in my opinion, because AI, for the most part, can make even my analogy is this. The gun solved the size problem, right? What do I mean by that? In conflict, the gun solved the size problem. AI solves the brain problem. Okay. The just most street smart person can use
Yeah.
AI and seem like a PhD.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that. So I say be cognizant of the changes that the world is providing you and realize that robotics are going to be a big thing. So figure out what the field in that. The trades are going to be a big thing, right? Because things that require your hands and sort of that hands-on experience, school can't teach and AI can't do. And the other thing I would say is, find out who you can start to kind of get in sort of an apprenticeship from early on. I started a not-for-profit called Jobs for Interns, mainly because I saw schools not pumping out proper computer scientists or proper STEM related people. So I started that, and I became one of its biggest sponsors by providing not only the funding but also hiring the people. I try to get my colleagues to do that, but everyone has a sort of their own sort of track. But I'm still going to push it. But apprenticeship is what it's all about, I think. Nonetheless, bottom line, figure out what you want to do, be an apprentice, try a lot of things early on. And then once you find your passion for something that you think you want to put the time in, i.e. not play video games or go hang out with your friends, those are the things I would sort of stress to them.
Yeah. If I can bring that together, it's practical approach. Don't stress not being the smartest person in the room, getting A plus, 100% on every single test. Focus on the street smarts. You said that. I think of myself more of a street smarts guy. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a doctor. Uh, if you're halfway decent at something, you can get the rest of the way there with AI. So practical approach. Um,
Early apprenticeship.
yeah,
Practice lots of things early on when you could fail and learn
yeah.
what you're good at and then focus on the things that you're good at.
Well, it goes back to the Michael Jordan or any other sports analogy. You miss all the shots you don't take, you're going to lose more than you win. But losing is how you learn. Um, I do want to hear if you want to do a quick promo for the jobs for interns. Where does someone find that?
So www.j4i.org or
Okay.
j4i.org, j4i.org. Or
Yeah.
you can wipe out the whole thing, jobsforinterns.org. So they c- that is meant to have companies put their requests in there, and people who want apprenticeship jobs, if you will,
Yeah.
internships, put their resumes up there, and then the system is going to provide the vendors, the ones who want people, to be able to peruse the people who applied, and then the students could apply, peruse the jobs that are there.
That's great.
Unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately, I have not had enough time to promote it. So for the most part, it's just myself and a couple of companies that I know who have taken advantage of it. And then it's word of mouth for the most part right now.
Yeah, send it to me after. I'd love to take a look at it. That's awesome. No, we need more of that, right? The internships, I'm very grateful for all the internships I had. I think that there were probably some summers where I probably could have done something a little more practical instead of just a box checker. And I know that there's people that probably feel the same way. Having something a little more tangible related to what you're eventually going to be doing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Any last thoughts?
Well, I wanted to thank you for having me. I don't normally get an opportunity to tell my story, but I've been fortunate enough now on three events. One, to be interviewed in Profile for Success by Bernhardt, which I'm volume 10. That kind of gave me sort of an indication that my story is worthwhile. And then
Yeah.
I just did something on a podcast called Child DMV, where they're featuring Italian Americans, and I happen to be a good candidate because I was born in Italy, so I guess I was a good candidate. So I'm very grateful to be able to tell people what I think my views are about how to make it. I'm not the most successful person, but I'm eating well.
I think you've got a great story, and thank you for sharing with us. Well, that wraps up today. Thank you for joining us. This is another edition of Inside Interviews with GovCon Leader Circle. I'm Billy Hempler. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.
Thank you, Billy.